I'm going to grade every AFL club based on how they did in season 2023 compared to the expectations of that club that came with them before the season started. In alphabetical order, we are starting off with the Adelaide Football Club. Now, I've given Adelaide a grade of A. Reason being, realistically, they should have made the finals with that Ben Keays goal against Sydney. And I guess it's no surprise that they didn't make it as well because they are such a young team with a young coach and a new coach as well. But in terms of the expectation, I'm not sure many had them jumping into the 8. They were in the 8 for a large portion of the season, and as I already said, they should have made finals. They're an exciting team, they're up and coming, and if they have a good trade window, they'll be well into the 8 next year. Next up, we got Brisbane. I'm giving Brisbane an A. A+ would have been the flag. A because they didn't win the flag. They were a kick away from winning the flag, so that's the only reason I couldn't give them an A+, is because they didn't actually win it. Overall, I was surprised they made the grand final. I thought they would be in the 8 but not go far. General expectation was top 4, similar to Melbourne, and they did that and they got to a grand final, which they haven't done since the 04 season, I believe. But yeah, they fell short, which is why it's an A. Next up, Carlton. I'm giving Carlton a B+. May seem a little harsh, but I think it's inexcusable that sort of mid part of the season where their form was deplorable. If they hadn't had that sort of dip in form, would have been an A+. Look, yes, they made a prelim, so an A is probably deserved, but the expectation, especially for me, was to be up there. 5th place, end of the home away season, is very good. Maybe they do deserve an A, but I'm sticking with a B+ just because of that dip in form throughout the year. And I think they have one of the best lists in the competition, better than Brisbane, better than Port Adelaide. So there's no excuses. Collingwood. I've given Collingwood an A+. I wonder why. It's pretty simple. Won the flag. What more do you want? Anyone who wins the flag gets an A+. You win the flag, you can't get less than that. Essendon. It's a tough one for me purely because I think they overperformed with the list. Brad Scott's an amazing coach, but they did overperform. So you have to give them a good mark, but they also dipped off towards the end. Looks so likely to make finals, and then they fall away. So you have to take that into account. I've gone with a C+. Close to a B, but just not quite, purely because that drop off towards the end, but it's better than a pass. Fremantle. I've given Fremantle an F. Complete fail. I had them finishing 5th place, and I think the expectation was Brayshaw, Sarong, Darcy, all young, all going to get better. Longmuir, he looks like a good coach, good young list. Natural progression from last season was to go further, and they did the opposite. Longmuir shot himself, couldn't cope with injuries, things just weren't firing. Key position players aren't there, coach isn't good, has to be a fail, complete fail of a season. Finishing in 14th. That is 5th last. And you can't really count North Melbourne and West Coast. So realistically, in terms of competitive teams, Hawthorn and Gold Coast are the only teams below them. Gold Coast was 1 win away from them. Hawthorn 3 wins away from them. Absolute no excuses from them. Super bad. Geelong. I've given Geelong an E. Now you might be wondering, okay, how come Fremantle got an F, Geelong get an E? Now the reason being is the expectation this season was to be up there, but with a slight drop off. The only reason I think Fremantle's was worse is because Fremantle had young talent, where Geelong obviously have an aging list. Was the hunger going to be there? Clearly not. I wouldn't be mad if you gave them an F, but I've just gone with an E purely because I kind of saw that coming, but I didn't see it coming that bad. GWS, another A+. Same as Collingwood, has to be an A+. Everyone had them outside the 8, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. I believe I had them 14th or so in my preseason predictions, which you would have seen on TikTok. Follow it, FTFooty. It has to be an A+. Let's be real. To make a prelim, lose it by a point. 1 point away from the grand final. With a young list, a young coach who's in his first full year of coaching, full season. That's extraordinary what they're doing, what they did. There's a lot of high hopes for them now. Hopefully, because it's a young list, they won't sort of crumble under the pressure next season, because this season was sort of a free season for them in the sense that no one expected anything. When now they've made a prelim, next season's going to come with a lot more expectations and subsequently pressure. Nonetheless, well done, A+. Gold Coast. I've given Gold Coast an E, not just the league position where they came 4th last, and like I said, that's really 2nd last because, well, really it's last because the other 3 teams below them are rebuilding. Sacking Stewie Dew. Yes, they got Dimmer in, but I still think Stewie Dew is the right guy for Gold Coast. There was a lot of talk about players only re-signing there because of Stewie Dew. Nonetheless, really poor season. You come in 4th 4th last. Every season I feel like it's like a bad season and then, they'll improve. They didn't really improve at all. They looked poor and really irrelevant, I think is the perfect word for Gold Coast in season 2023, because they were never a part of the 8, but never a part of the bottom fight. Hawthorn, I've given Hawthorn a B+. I think that's pretty fair. I feel like an A or A+ would be fighting or making the 8. Yes, they came 3rd last, but they looked really good throughout the year. Looked phenomenal for a young rebuilding list with a young coach, no experienced players really, relying on purely young players. Mitchell's done really well, has proven me wrong. I thought Mitchell was a facade, but he's proven me wrong. He's been a good coach. And I thought Hawthorn at times played a really good brand of footy, an exciting brand of footy, a forward-thinking brand of football, which comes into account with the grading. I think B+ is fair. I expected them to finish dead last, so they've exceeded my expectations alongside a lot of others. Melbourne, I've gone with a D purely because of the finals. Like, making top 4, you finish there, is probably an A. Straight sets against 2 clubs that you weren't expected to beat, but they were both at the G. So realistically, 2 games at home ground. They fail. Straight sets again with the best list in the competition. They do have the best list in the competition, but they failed. It can't be any lower than a D because they made top 4. I had them for the flag, so it has to be a D. North Melbourne gets an E for me. Might seem harsh, but it was just some shambles with Clarko, him leaving for mental health reasons. And when he came back, didn't get much better. The first 2 games they won, and everyone's thinking, wow. But if you consider that they only won 3 games for the year, and the 2 of them were in the first 2 rounds, they had 1 win in the next 22 rounds, which is atrocious form for a team with really good talent. Larkey, you go Zerha, and Zeebel's now retired, but he was a good experienced player. Goldstein, experienced player. Simpkin, LDU, they have really good talent. Mackay as well. So I don't think there's too much of an excuse there, which is why I've gone with an E, not an F, because they came 17th, not dead last. Port Adelaide, I actually tipped Port Adelaide to come first at the end of the home and away season. Generally speaking, the public had them around the 8, some had them finishing 9th, some had them just in the 8. I have given Port Adelaide a C, pretty average there, reason being, look, like I said, finishing top 4, it was an A, but I think the straight sets brings it down, and because I had them finishing first, they finished 3rd or 4th overall. I think a C is pretty fair in terms of what was expected from myself and everyone else. Maybe a C+, but we'll stick with a C just because straight sets lost, especially that home ground loss to GWS, was inexcusable. Richmond, my team. I've given my team an A. I'm fucking joking. Richmond get an F. Fremantle get an F. Richmond get an F. I had them top 4, I think in 4th in my preseason predictions. Signings were great. Hopper, Taranto, exactly what we needed in the midfield. Some younger mids with speed and talent, really. I really thought we were going to do well. Dimmer leaves, shit hits the fan, and it's an F. Finishing, I think they finished in 13th overall with a percentage of 93, which is deplorable. Yes, they were only 2 wins away from the top 8. So if you look at it like that, maybe that's a bit harsh, but you're your harshest critic, and I'm a harsh critic of my team. It was a fail. Everything from losing the coach, performances, I guess signings went alright. Taranto was obviously great, but things are looking bad now. Cochin and Rewalt retired. Dustin might leave. We don't have great draft picks. It's not looking good for Richmond. Sydney, giving Sydney a D+. Reason being, in my expectations, they actually did well because I had them finishing 10th place in my preseason predictions. A lot of people had Sydney in the top 8. Bit of a mix, lower part, top 4. But generally speaking, they were in the 8. Now, they did make the 8, but they lost first round. Obviously, there's leeway there because when you do get smashed in a grand final, the year after you fail, right? That's the general trend. However, it's still not an excuse. You're the 2nd best team last year. How come you're the 8th best team this year? And they shouldn't have even made the finals. Like I said, Ben Keys, the Adelaide game, should have won that game because that was a goal. So they actually shouldn't have made the finals. So they're lucky to get just a D+. St Kilda. St Kilda, for me, get an A. A+ would have been if they won that first final, but I'm giving them an A just because they lost it at home as well, which is a bit disappointing. Terrible injuries throughout the year, especially to their forward line. A list that I think is one of the worst in the competition. Ross Lyon worked magic, young talent worked magic, and they really exceeded everyone's expectations. They finished 6th at the end of the home away season, which is remarkable. You'd said that before the season started, anyone, they'll think you're on something. It has to be an A for St Kilda, proving a lot of people wrong. The Western Bulldogs next, second last team. I've given the Dogs an E+. Reason being, one of the best lists in the competition, talent in their prime as well as young talent there. I think they have all the resources to finish in the top 4, let alone the top 8, and they finished 9th. Now I did predict this. I predicted them to come 9th. They came 9th, so you might be wondering, they should get a C, right? Because that's, you know, an average grade. The general public had them, I think, in the 8, and also, like I said, looking at the list, there's absolutely no excuse to finish outside the 8. They ended up capitulating at the end, losing to the Eagles at home. The Eagles are one of the worst teams you've ever seen in the AFL since, well, the VAFL. Really, they were awful. The Dogs, look, yes, they were 2 points outside the 8, but no excuses there. I think an A+ is deserved, not an E or an F, because, you know, they weren't expected by many people to finish top 4, you know, so a bit of leeway there. Lastly, the Eagles. Eagles get an E, only because of late season heroics. Ended up with 3 wins, especially that win against the Dogs. That gets them up a grade. F would have been if they'd won 1 or 2 games. Winning 3 games with the worst list I've ever seen, which is just getting worse with the departures of Barras and perhaps McGovern, and also the retirements of Hearn, Shuey, Nick Nat. Things are looking bleak. But an E is pretty respectable. And look, people had them bottom 3. In fact, I think everyone had them bottom 3 or so. They just were so bad throughout the year. You can't give them anything less or anything more than an E. And that is it. All the gradings are up on the screen. Let me know if you agree with them. I was very harsh, very, very harsh, but I gave you my reasons. Why did they get that grade? Let me know if you agree. Give me your grades for all your, well, for your particular team or all the teams in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, all the good stuff. A lot of videos coming, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in another video.